stop this, stop the recording, um, and then restart it.
I have not had a cover. Aaron dropped this off for Blaze. But I have not had a chance to ask Dave yet if he planned that quick. Because I thought that he might, because he was a little nervous about the whole sending him.
Greetings, everyone. Is my sound volume okay?
Think so? It sounds good to me, Tom.
Good,
Or
good.
us.
Well, thank you all for joining. Tonight's exciting topic is boards of review. I'll apologize in advance. I'm not the world's greatest at PowerPoint, so not a lot of cascades and whatever it might be, but some text in there, a couple of 3 pictures, but there is a PowerPoint set of slides that we'll kind of be following. But I do encourage anyone to throw any questions either live or throw them in the chat as we go. This is an interesting topic. I quite frankly, I learned a few things in preparing this, so we'll just jump right into it. Just to kind of give you a framework to begin with here, the Scout's Guide to Advancement defines advancement as simply a means to an end, not an end in itself, one of several methods, and we'll focus on the word methods here, designed to help unit leadership carry out the aims and missions of the Boy Scouts of America. And here we have a quick shot of Scouting's 8 methods, the ideals, the Scout Oath and Law, and we'll be coming back to that a time or two. Patrols, the patrol method, and the keywords in that are teamwork, citizenship, responsibility, and small group interaction. I will say, and I have said for a number of years, it's no accident that Baden-Powell chose camping as the framework for his youth program, because in a campsite, you got a pretty distilled microcosm of society. In other words, if you're helping, it's noticeable. If you're not helping, it's noticeable also. So outdoor programs, conservation, respect for nature, skill building, and self-confidence. And here's a big one, advancement. The Guide to Advancement uses the word surmountable. I like the word achievable, obstacles, self-paced, sense of accomplishment, and recognition. Association with adults, a positive adult role model, adults taking an interest in youth character development. This will come into play in our discussion about boards of review. Personal growth, good turn concept, scout goals, goal set and achieves, participate and lead service projects. Leadership development, practice leadership skills at a safe failure setting. Understanding leadership concepts and differing styles of leadership, and in particular, servant leadership. And uniform, part of a large group, identify with a world brotherhood, a force for good, and a visible commitment to the aims and purposes of scouting, which are the mission of the Boy Scouts of America is to prepare youth or young people to make ethical and moral choices over a lifetime by instilling in them the values of the Scout Oath and Law. Every Scout activity moves young people toward the basic aims of character development, citizenship training, leadership, and mental fitness. So as many of us do know, but we'll start with it here, the 4 steps of advancement, and these are kind of important to keep in mind. Each has a purpose and each has an order. Advancement is based on experiential learning and is best accomplished by doing things with a patrol or a troop, with adult and youth leaders, and independently. Scouts learn. Step 1, the Scout learns. This promotes self-confidence, increases the opportunity for the Scout to contribute. As the Scout develops knowledge and skills, they are asked to teach others, which both reinforces their skills and further develops their leadership skills. Number 2, a Scout is tested. Unit leadership authorizes those who may test and pass the Scout on rank advancement. They might include a patrol leader, senior patrol leader, unit leader, assistant scout master, or another scout. Good if it can be another scout. That's very helpful. A note here before we continue. The Guide to Advancement makes it clear that once a scout has been tested and signed off by someone approved to do so, the requirement has been met. The unit leader is accountable for ensuring proper advancement procedures are followed. Careful selection and monitoring of these selected individuals to sign off ranks is key. Step 3, which brings us to tonight, a scout is reviewed. After completing all rank requirements, except for the scout rank, where there is no board of review, a scout meets with a board of review. Following a successful board of review, a scout is recognized. When the scout has earned the rank, or when the board of review has approved his advancement, the scout deserves recognition as soon as possible. This should be done at the following meeting, and again, more at a more formal setting like a court of honor. A couple of notes here on advancement. Most surprises or difficulties at a board of review typically stem from a questionable execution of advancement step number 2, which is the testing phase. If there's a problem at a board of review, we'll get into this in a few minutes here, the problem usually didn't start at the board of review itself. After a scout is tested, reviewed, and recognized, a well-organized unit program will help the scout by presenting opportunities to practice newly learned skills in a different setting and method. This is key. Earning a rank or learning a skill doesn't stop the process. And I think most of us will agree that we learn just as much, if not more, by teaching others once we've mastered the skill ourselves. Boards of review are rank requirements from tenderfoot through the rank of Eagle Scout. I want to chat for just a second here, kind of separate and talk about the differences between a unit leader conference and a board of review. And by all means, feel free to throw in any questions or thoughts as we go through these. A unit leader conference is best held after all skill requirements have been signed off and before a board of review for rank advancement, but it can be done anytime while the scout is working on that rank. The purpose of the Scoutmaster Conference is to ensure the scout is ready for a board of review. That's a pretty broad statement, but that's the main purpose. And we'll break that down also as we wade through this. Scoutmaster Conference fosters increased trust and confidence between the scout and the Scoutmaster or unit leader. This creates the opportunity for the Scoutmaster to seek changes if needed in the troop activity advancement program. The best source of information about tweaking your advancement program or your activities program is the scout, patrol leader, the patrol leaders council, the scouts themselves. They will give you the best grassroots feedback of how the program is doing. It also allows the Scoutmaster to evaluate the scout's personal growth and developing stronger leadership skills. You might look at it this way. The unit leader conference is kind of the last chance the unit leader has to assure himself and the scout that he's ready for a board of review. Like the board of review, the Scoutmaster Conference is not a test, but the unit leader is wise to assure at the conference that the scout has a solid grasp of rank requirements. Discussion, not an examination, will reveal this. Here's some examples I threw in just to kind of frame the point a little bit here. Some example questions for a unit leader is, in what situations would you tie a bowline knot, or would a bowline knot be helpful? How about 2 half hitches? That approach might lead to a discussion of the edge method, which is a requirement for some of the ranks in black and white, but it's handy for all the rank requirements. If the unit leader is uncertainty, he may follow up with, how would you teach another scout how to tie a bowline knot or 2 half hitches? Only in cases where there is a clear lack of skill or understanding should a unit leader ask for a skill demonstration. But by that point, the scout usually has a pretty good idea that he needs a little more study. A unit leader is evaluating future teachers for the rank requirements and skills. And the unit leader conference, like the board of review, is a discussion. Both unit leader and scout can learn much from each other. I'm going to throw in a quick personal story here on this point. Years ago, as a youth, when I was working on swimming merit badge, one of the requirements it was called the silent swim. It's no longer part of the merit badge requirement, but the adult scouts my age and older will remember that requirement. We had 2 chances to do it in a pool, It was observed by the summer camp staff at the time. I did my very best. I got in the pool. I thought I did a great job going through the underwater swimming and being quiet. And I was really high-fiving myself. I got to the end of the pool, and the staff counselor who was observing me bent down right into my ear, so only I could hear him. And he said, basically in a whisper, he said, "I've seen you do better. Why don't you try that again?" Which was a polite way of saying you didn't quite meet the standard, go get it. But that approach and the method in which he told me that has stuck with me for a long time. I was eager to try again, and I did get through it the second time. The point being, at the unit leader conference, that's the kind of thing that the scoutmaster or unit leader was looking for. If he sees that things may not go well, if there's some hesitation, that's the time to kind of flesh it out and boost the scout's self-confidence in a way that will make him understand that, yeah, I'm going for something important here. I need to be ready. I want to be prepared, and I want to be a contributing member of the troop when this is all done. So moving into the actual meat and potatoes for tonight, the Board of Review itself. Now, these bullet points are the same for tenderfoot through life scout. Again, there's no requirement for a Board of Review for the rank of scout. So from tenderfoot through life, we're following the Scouts BSA Guide to Advancement, Section 8000. Section 8 provides clear Board of Review guidelines. I will say clear. I will also say that they're interpretive, kind of like an insurance policy. They're clear enough to be functional, but they can be interpreted differently, which is a good thing. So Boards of Review are similar from tenderfoot through life, and they're intended to determine the quality of a scout's experience and decide if the requirements for the rank have been fulfilled. Note, this responsibility is for the Board of Review. Board of Review should be conducted promptly when a scout is ready. Boards of Review must be granted when all requirements are met. They cannot be denied or deferred. The successful Board of Review date becomes the scout's date of rank. Now, this is important in the higher ranks where time in service and time in rank is important, first class and above. So as soon as the scout successfully completes a Board of Review, whatever date that is, that's the date that should go in scout book and the date that should go in his handbook. A Board of Review cannot be denied once the scout believes he has met all the requirements, including the requirement for a unit leader conference. Scheduling a Board of Review is not the responsibility of the applicant scout. We've had a couple of interesting conversations. This crops up more in the Eagle Scout Board of Review area, but it's the same for all ranks. The scout should not select, identify, or request specific members to comprise the Board of Review. It's appropriate to advise the scout, typically done by the unit leader, that a Board of Review may not be successful. The scout retains the option of proceeding regardless. And I do note, if you look at the Guide to Advancement 8.0.0.2, the word past does show up in the Guide to Advancement, which causes some confusion because human nature dictates like there's a black and white, like there's a day and night. If there's a pass, there's a fail. There is not a fail. There is only a pass. Boards of Review conducted at the unit level are done so with adult volunteers, 3 minimum, 6 maximum. Uniforms are not required. Neat appearance is. The lack of a uniform is fair game for questioning, but not a denial of a Board of Review or a reason to deem the board unsuccessful. Review for tenderfoot to life rank should be 15 to 25 minutes with a 30-minute maximum. And the Board of Review should be conducted in a formal yet relaxed atmosphere, obviously in clear view of other people. Typically, Boards of Review for this rank are done in conjunction with troop meetings or PLC nights, or maybe even a troop committee meeting night. And they're conducted with the scout law in mind. The scout must be registered while working on youth advancement, but does not need to be registered at the time of a board of review. Unit leaders should introduce the scout to the board members. The scout should know by name everyone on the review board. Typically they do, and in many cases it's someone that they know fairly well, but that's not always the case, and that kind of needs to be established. And the members of the board do not need to know the scout personally. It's helpful if they do, but they'll get a gauge and a feel for the scout at the board of review if it's done successfully, done properly. The board, of course, should be done in a quiet setting with youth protection guidelines fully complied with. Unit leaders may remain in attendance, but as an observer only, and they can be excluded if it's deemed that their presence is counterproductive. The unit leader had their opportunity at the unit leader conference that we mentioned a minute ago. And rarely will they sit in on a board of review unless there's some compelling reason that they are there. Board members in attendance agree on a chairperson, typically the unit committee chair or the advancement chair of the unit. Board review observers are kept to a minimum. It's good to have observers if you're bringing new people in and giving them an idea what the board of review process is like. You want to keep it to a minimum. You don't want to overwhelm the scout, but observers are allowed to sit in. Parents and relatives are not included and are not part of a board of review. And if there is a parent that is fairly insistent, if push comes to shove, rather than make a federal case out of things, they can sit in, but it's got to be made clear to them that they're there to remain quiet. Their presence can alter the dynamics of the board of review. And that's the reason for that breakout in the guide to advancement. There are exceptions to this, of course, and that is if the rank requirements are being pursued under special or alternate circumstances. Before board members determine, but the board members' decision must be unanimous. Discussion of any potential problems are done beforehand. And if those discussions lead to a point where it's pretty clear that things might not go well, it's best to simply advise the scout and table the board review for that time and reschedule it. And then in the meantime, have a chat with the unit leader conference and see if things that might be going off track can get back on track. But if the board members must all agree that the scout has met the requirements for that rank. We want to avoid the use of mock or practice boards of review. When this may sound a little odd, but there's some solid reasoning behind it. Basically, a mock or a practice board of review kind of subtly underscores the possible expectation of certain answers, and that's just not the case. It also kind of sets the stage for scout thinking that if I don't say these certain things, I'm not going to succeed. That's just not true. So it should be spontaneous and not rehearsed, by the board and not rehearsed by the scout. Consider a question and answer that reveals the scout's character and leadership. And this is pretty much the main theme of any good board of review. Ideas and experiences, mental and physical fitness, and living the scout oath and law. We keep coming back to that scout oath and law because it's a central point, not only of the methods of scouting, but of the value of the board of review process. The scout is informed immediately, regardless of review outcome. The review date becomes the date of rank when successfully completed. The unit leader is also informed of the board of review's decision. Typically, for this tenderfoot through life, typically the unit leader is pretty much within earshot anyway, or pretty easy to reach. So you want to let the unit leader know right away that a board of review has been successfully completed. Video boards of review were kind of a thing for a while during COVID. We sat in on a few of those. They're possible. There are guidelines for them in the guide to advancement. but they've really tapered off since the COVID pandemic, and they're just not as effective as an in-person board of review. There are times when they have a place. If the scout just can't be in the same place at the same time, it's allowed. But you really are going to be well served to try to get the board of review done in person. And the requirements for those are laid out in the guide to advancement. Multiple ranks can be reviewed on the same day, but the review boards should be separate and involve different board members if possible. This is something that I learned, and I'm not sure how well this is practiced, but per the guide to advancement, if you're conducting multiple boards of review, you want to mix up the board members a little bit. The time frame clock we talked about earlier does reset between the boards of review. I don't know whether anyone has ever done 3 of them in one night. I know that 2 can be done. Typically second class and first class are the 2 you see put together. And if so, it can be done with different board members. You don't need to do both of those within one set time frame. If you can have a scout in the room for 50 to 55 minutes, you can get it done. Scouts BSA Review Board composition administrations differ slightly for the Venture Summit Award and the Ski Scout Scoutmaster Quartermaster Award, but we'll get into those just a little bit when we talk further about the Eagle Board of Review, which is coming up next. These next 2 slides touch on the idea of the Eagle Board of Review, but before we launch into those, are there any questions, either video or in the chat? Okay. Review are conducted with a verified Eagle application, which is required before the board can be convened. Board members set aside about 30 to 40 minutes before an Eagle Board of Review question and answer to review the paperwork. And the paperwork they'll be reviewing is ideally the applicant's binder or verified Eagle application, his essay, statement of life's ambitions, the letters of recommendation that have been written on his behalf. Letters of reference or recommendation, as I use, are required before the board is convened, but review board cannot be delayed due to non-responsive character references. There's a fine point here I do want to touch on because it touches on the Eagle Board of Review. The letters of recommendation belong to the council, and a strict reading of the guide to advancement indicates that it's really the council's responsibility to contact the references. This is done slightly different from district to district. In Five Creeks, we typically allow the scout to reach out to at least 5 more 10 people that he would like to have letters from, and we provide them guidance to make sure the letters are sent to the appropriate person and not back to the scout. But a technical reading of the guide to advancement indicates that the council must contact the references or contact the references listed on his Eagle application if need be. Regardless of how it's done, a minimum of 5 letters of recommendation are typically reviewed by the board along with the application itself and the essay before the scout is called into the room for the Q&A portion of the board of review. And sometimes that portion lasts a little longer than the Q&A portion. Technically, the clock doesn't start for an Eagle Board of Review until the scout walks in the room. Then he has up to 45 minutes to chat with the board members. But sometimes a good Eagle Board of Review and the board members can take some time to really get a feel for that scout before he actually starts answering questions. In the lack of a unit approval of an Eagle application is not grounds to deny a board of review. It is, however, fair game for questioning the applicant. And we'll touch a little more on this in just a minute. Eagle Boards of Review, the Q&A portion with the applicant should not exceed 45 minutes in length. And the applicants are encouraged to ask their own questions of the convened review board. The scouts that I work with, I really encourage them to ask questions of the board members to underscore the fact that this is a discussion, not an inquisition. Rarely will they do it because they just want to get through the process. But I've had a couple that have thrown out some really, really good questions. We adults in the program, as well as the youth who have been around for the past 7+ years, have seen some tremendous changes in the program. And it's really interesting to see how the scouts feel about it. And I think it's interesting to have the scouts ask how the adults feel about those changes. I know I'm not shy about answering questions like that when a scout asks me. Only one Eagle Board of Review per applicant. And backing up just a little bit, in this process of advancement for any rank, there was only one Board of Review. So only one Board of Review per rank in Scouts. Boards of review may be held up to 24 months after the applicant's 18th birthday. The applicant need not be registered with Scouts BSA at the time of his Eagle Board of Review. This requirement changed from 90 days to 24 months during the COVID pandemic, and it remains 24 months to this date. I think we can all agree that's a bit excessive, but that's the way it is. So we'll touch briefly here on the boards of review under disputed circumstances. This is available for all ranks, but it's extremely rare, particularly in the tenderfoot through life ranks. I'm not aware that I've never been a party to one of those in the tenderfoot to life ranks. They do crop up from time to time for the Eagle Board of Review. Scouts must be advised in writing if a review board cannot agree. The letter goes to the local council. The letter to the scout must state actions that may lead to advancement and explain the appeal process. Appeals can only be filed by the scout or the scout's parent or guardian. And we'll touch here in just a second about the difference between a review board under disputed circumstances and an appeal. Again, a scout is only given one board of review per rank. If that board is not successfully completed, an appeal process can be undertaken, and that's spelled out in the guide to advancement, but that appeal process is an investigative function, more of the steps that led to the inability to get a successful board of review. It is not a second board of review for the scout. An appeal is a review of what took place to date that prevented a board of review from being successful. And again, 99.44% of the time, if it crops up, that's going to be for the rank of Eagle Scout, not for the rank of tenderfoot through life scouts. If a scout is carefully guided through a board of review that's not going well, at some point the light bulb's going to go off, and even the scout's going to realize, I need a little more study here. So, and yeah, an appeal is an investigative process. It's not another board of review. Findings of the appointed panel for an appeal. I lost my point here. The findings of the appointed is okay. All right. Whatever the appeal panel determines based on their investigation becomes the final answer. Either the rank is granted to the scout, or the matter is sent up to the National Office for further review. For tenderfoot through life ranks, there was no request for a board of review under disputed circumstances. There was just an appeal process if the board is conducted at the unit level. Delegated board members under disputed circumstances are selected. The chairperson selects 2 to 4 experienced volunteer adult leaders to run out the board of review. So the council rather determines who will conduct a board of review under disputed circumstances. It can be done either at the district level or at the council level. Administration of a board of review follows established procedures for an otherwise non-disputed board of review. Members of the Scouts unit do not participate in the board of review under disputed circumstances and are advised of the resulting decision of the review board. The board of review under disputed circumstances, the chairperson signs the application, which is resubmitted to the council office with a letter indicating the application may be processed without the unit leadership signatures. Typically, what sets off a board under disputed circumstances is an application that is sent to the council office without a signature from either the benefiting organization or the unit leader or the committee chair or all three. These boards and the appeal process are extremely rare, but the guidelines for an appeal are found in the Guide to Advancement. An appeal is not another board of review, and it's an investigative step of the dispute. Appeals conducted at the council level, conducted at the council level, but can involve district level volunteers. Unit members are not part of the appeal process, but can be contacted for input and should be contacted for input. Again, Scouts have only one board of review for each rank. Now to the fun part here. Here's a couple of slides on what I feel are what to ask, what to discuss, and I'll frame these last remaining slides with a comment that kind of rings true here. The program that we find ourselves in now has changed drastically, as I alluded to earlier. This is not your father's scouting program. Therefore, these are not your father's boards of review. If you ask an Eagle Scout who had his board of review as far back as maybe the early 80s, the 70s, the 60s, they will regale you with a story that you may not believe. The idea of a board of review has changed over time, but the practice of a review process goes back. I found evidence of boards of reviews as far back as 1938 in some of the handbooks that were out at the time. But in my youth experience, I had several boards of review. I remember only one of them. It was my Eagle Board of Review, and much of it I will never, ever forget. So review boards may refer to BSA texts, the BSA Handbook, Troop Committee Guide, Scoutmaster Handbook, BSA Guide to Advancement. These are all great resources for unit committees and boards of review to refer to. There are no suggested questions and topics on the internet, but all of these are unofficial sources. It's okay to use them, Aaron on scouting, Brian on scouting, whatever internet source you might want to look up, there's nothing prohibiting researching those for good board of review questions, but these are all unofficial sources written from people who are interpreting the Guide to Advancement, just like all of us are. So some topic areas I like, things like questions to be asked of the scout, regardless of their rank, is where were your skills learned? Who taught you? What did you gain from working on this rank? Describe how you'd live the Scout Oath and Law. These, again, these are not skill demonstration questions. They're thought-provoking questions designed to give the board of review a good idea of the Scout's grasp of the rank, but also his grasp of the ideals of scouting and the living of the Scout Oath and Law. Gauge the Scout's comfort level. Mix in some lighthearted questions with some more thought-provoking questions. Not all youth feel comfortable talking to adults, but again, that was one of the methods we talked about earlier, association with adults. This is an ideal chance to help the scout hone his skills talking with adults. The board of review is not a job interview. It's not an inquisition, but it's a setting not unlike either one of those two things. I know it was helpful to me in my Eagle Board of Review. as memorable as it was. In future events, when I had to sit before review boards or job interviews, whatever, I drew from that experience, and I drew a lot of confidence from my Eagle Board of Review. It can and should be a very positive experience. Phrase your questions to avoid yes or no answers. I tell a lot of the scouts I work with, there's a limited number of time that you're going to be in the room, depending on your rank. If you're asked a question and you take 10 minutes to answer it, you're going to get fewer questions. If you're asked a question and you answer yes or no, that's just more time for more questions, and most of them get the hint. I usually take notes during the boards of review that I sit in on, and just the record high number of questions from a troop was in the 60s. The record low was 12, because that scout took about 5 minutes to answer every question. Phrase your questions about skill completion to determine understanding, not necessarily perfection. Though not an examination, review boards must be satisfied the scout is confident in his skills, such that he can teach other scouts, thus contributing to the strength of the unit. This is where we start getting into a bit of a gray area. The board of review does really need to feel comfortable that the scout has mastered or understands the skills. Focus also on service questions. What good turn did you do today? A well-run board gives the unit a good picture of the status of the unit's activity program. Notes or minutes are not required, but they may help if a letter needs to be written. Notes are not retained. Focus on scout craft, tenderfoot through first class. That's pretty easy thing to do. Again, you're not asking for a demonstration or skill, but the scout craft is what you want to kind of have a good feel for. Remember, Baden-Powell's ideal of the complete scout was the rank of first class, because at first class, the scout should feel comfortable in the outdoors and be able to work with other scouts to get them comfortable too. Focus on service and leadership and merit badge work in the ranks of Star through Life and Eagle. Eagle boards of review follow the same format as the boards of review for Tenderfoot through Life, but Eagle board of review questions typically fall into 3 areas: the project, the time in the unit, and your plans for the future, tempered through the lens of your scouting experience. I like to see citizenship-based questions asked at an Eagle board of review. What is your primary source of news and current events? I kind of cringe when I hear TikTok, but I do hear that one. Can you name 1 or 2 top global stories or national news stories? You know, what current events are going on? Citizenship is a key element of scouting, and in particular, scouts that are working towards Eagle and sitting for their Eagle board of review are close to or at age 18 when they start voting. Again, for the 18-year-old, have you registered for the vote? Have you voted? Don't ask who they voted for or what they're voting on, but have you registered? That's a fair question. I tell the scouts I work with that the Eagle board of review is for all the marbles. It can be very broad-based. Thought-provoking questions are good indicators of both learning and personal growth. During the board of review, any board of review, the applicant is allowed to refer to his handbook, his project binder, and his Eagle application. And with that, that's pretty much what I've got prepared for tonight. So let's open the floor for questions, and feel free to throw it.
Thank you, Russ. That was a great demonstration, or a great presentation.
Well, thanks. I hope it answered more questions than it raised, but and I'll just throw up here, I got a couple of slides at the end here that list where a lot of this came from.
The Guide to Advancement is a great source for answering the details.
It is, yeah, and I like the fact that there's room for some interpretation. But well, if there are no questions, thank you all for your attendance. I'll be happy to I will, before we go, put my email address in the chat.
Pat, are you still online?
He's I think he had one foot in the troop meeting tonight too. So
Okay. I was just wondering, I think these webinars go up on the PTAC advancement website, but I'm not 100% sure where this one's going to be stored after the recording is done.
yeah, he's I'm not either, but I've found them pretty easily when I need to look for them. So hopefully
Yeah,
it'll be fine.
I've seen them up on PTAC under the advancement advancement tab.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, that's pretty much where we are.
Thank you, Russ.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Hope it worked out all right. And got any questions? Shoot me an email, pull me aside at a round table, whatever. So be happy to further confuse anybody.
All right, good night.
Thanks,
All right,
Russ.
take care, everyone. Safe
Yeah,
travels.
good
You're
night.
welcome. Take
Thank you.
care. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.